So today we're talking about cash ISAs versus stocks and shares ISAs. If we judge this by the popularity of the accounts, it's not even a contest. Cash ISAs get a whole lot more love, with 66% of all new ISAs opened being cash ISAs, whereas only 29% of all new ISAs opened are stocks and shares ISAs. And this isn't just because interest rates are high at the moment, as if we look at the period 2010 to 2020, when interest rates were incredibly low, cash ISAs still dominated this period. So it's clear that cash ISAs are the more popular ISA type. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that cash ISAs are the best ISA for you, as this will depend on your financial goals, on your risk appetite, and when you'll need the money. One thing which is almost certain for everyone watching this is that if you want to save or invest, you will likely be better suited to using an ISA account type over a non-ISA account type, given the huge tax advantages ISAs have in tax-free interest and tax-free gains. There's 5 different ISA account types in total if we include the Innovative Finance ISA, Junior ISA, and Lifetime ISA. However, the 2 most relevant ISA types for the majority of us are the Cash ISA and Stocks and Shares ISA. So for this reason, we're going to focus on these 2 types. And to achieve that, we're going to split the video into 3 parts. We're firstly going to look into what is a cash ISA and what is a stock and shares ISA. Then secondly, we're going to look into who suits a stocks and shares ISA. And then thirdly, we're going to look into who suits a cash ISA. Before we begin, I need to put a disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor, so please take everything in this video with a pinch of salt. If you're new here, I'm Alex, a management consultant by day, and on this channel we like to discuss all things personal finance with a particular focus on how to grow your money. And if you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate a subscribe. I'd also greatly appreciate a like, as it's super helpful for small creators like me. But for this video, let's get into it by going through the account types. A cash ISA is essentially a savings account which allows you to earn interest tax-free. This is how it differs from a standard savings account, because all the interest you earn is exempt from income tax. There is a limit in terms of how much money you can put in a cash ISA in a single tax year, and the limit for the current tax year is £20,000, which is a total ISA limit across all your ISA accounts. In terms of how the cash ISAs work and the types of savings accounts available for a cash ISA, it's just like with normal savings accounts in that they come in 3 main forms. Firstly, an easy access account type where you can withdraw money anytime. Secondly, a notice account type where you've got to give a certain number of days notice to withdraw the money. And thirdly, a fixed term account type where your money is locked away for a fixed period before you can withdraw it. So in summary, cash ISAs are effectively just a savings account with a limit on contributions and tax-free benefits. Stocks and shares ISAs are similar in that they have a tax advantage. However, unlike cash ISAs, with a stocks and shares ISA, your money doesn't go into a savings account. Instead, your money is invested in the stock market, and you typically invest in 3 types of assets: funds, individual stocks, and bonds. There are other types of assets you can invest in through a stocks and shares ISA, but these are the 3 most common. The difference between a stocks and shares ISA compared to a standard general investment account is that the money you earn is protected from dividend tax, capital gains tax, and income tax. This means that any increase in the value of your investments and profits you make when you sell the investments are not subject to tax. In terms of the limit on contributions, it's the same as before, a limit of £20,000 in a single tax year. So in summary, a stock and shares ISA is very similar to a general investment account, but it has an added tax-free benefit and also a limit on contributions in a single tax year. And that's the 2 main ISA types. So let's move on to who best suits each of these account types. Who suits a cash ISA, who suits a stocks and shares ISA. When using a stock and shares ISA, you will be investing and putting your money into something you believe will go up in value over time, above and beyond the level of inflation and savings rates. But for the chance of higher return, you also take some risk, as your money can go down as well as up. So with investing, you effectively take the risk of potentially losing some of your money for the chance to make a big return. And with that risk, investments tend to be volatile in the short term and going up and down frequently. But in the long term, in a period above 5 years, most funds tracking world indexes tend to outperform general savings rates and inflation rates and tend to perform positively. A time frame above 5 years tends to give your investment enough time to ride out any bumps in the market. For example, if we take a look at the historical returns of 500 large American companies measured by the S&P 500 index, we can see the long-term trend is upwards. And most 5-year periods throughout history of the S&P 500 have been positive. In fact, all 5-year periods since 2003 have been positive overall. However, if we look at periods less than 5 years, and if we look at specific individual years, we'll notice that some years the S&P 500 went down significantly, such as in 2008, where it went down over 30%, or in 2021, where it went down nearly 20%. If you invested at the start of those years in an S&P 500 tracking fund and needed the money later in that year and withdrew the money later in the year, you would have lost a whole lot of money. This shows that historically, the risk of losing money when investing is higher over shorter periods, but over longer periods, 5 years plus, then investing is likely to make a positive return. This is true throughout the whole history of the S&P 500, as 27% of the last 94 years of the S&P 500 in the period ending 2019 were negative. This means that if you had invested in the S&P 500 over just a 1-year period in any of those 94 years, you would have a 27% chance of investing in a negative year and losing money, and a 73% chance of investing in a positive year and make money. However, if we extend the period of time you keep your money invested in the S&P 500 to 5 years, we can see that only 12% of 5-year periods were negative and 88% were positive. So if you invested over any 5-year period over the last 94 years in the S&P, you would have an 88% chance of making a positive return. The odds get even better over 10 years, as only 6% of 10-year periods were negative, with 94% being positive. Although this is only one example in looking at if someone invested in an S&P tracking fund over history, various other studies looking at historical returns of other stock market investments also back this. For example, a 2019 Barclays study found that since 1899, the UK stock market has outperformed cash savings 91% of the time over 10-year periods. However, if we reduce the number of years in the period, the probability of equity outperforming cash savings reduces. It reduces to 76% over 5-year periods, 73% over 4-year periods, 71% over 3-year periods, and 69% over 2-year periods. So history shows that the longer the time frame you don't need the money, you don't need to withdraw the money, the higher the likelihood that you'll better suit a stocks and shares ISA over a cash ISA, as investing with a stocks and shares ISA tends to offer better returns over the long term compared to a cash ISA, allowing you to reach your financial goal quicker, whatever that goal may be. However, it's not always as easy as that, as there is one other key consideration in your risk appetite, the amount of risk you're willing to take. This depends on what you plan on using the money for, aka your financial goals. For example, if you plan on using the money for a goal for a house purchase, you may not want to risk any of that money going down in value, as the money is incredibly important to help you achieve a life goal. So in this case, you may be risk averse and prefer a cash ISA as it offers lower risk. However, if you don't plan on needing the money for over 10 years and plan on just using it to achieve the goal of flexibility later in life, then you could feel that you are able to take more risk to seek a higher return, and in this case you may have a high risk appetite suited to investing with stocks and shares ISA. So overall, those with goals with longer time frames and those with higher risk appetites tend to suit stocks and shares ISAs over cash ISAs. There's no surprise here in that cash ISAs suit those who are risk averse and also those who have plans or goals which mean you'll need the money in under 5 years, a period of less than 5 years. Cash ISAs are currently offering very good interest rates. The best accounts are offering above 5%, so cash ISAs still provide you with a means to increase the value of your money and achieve your goal quicker than your money just sitting in the bank earning nothing. And importantly, with a cash ISA, there is very limited risk, as you're typically protected up to 85k through the FSCS scheme if your provider goes bust. You also get a guaranteed return through a Cash ISA savings account as you have the interest rate. This may be variable, but at least you definitely have a return. This differs to investing where nothing is guaranteed. Your investments can go down in value as well as up in value. So for those who have a short time frame of needing their money and those who have a low risk appetite, the benefits of a Cash ISA with the protection and with the guaranteed returns may suit you well and may suit you better than a stocks and shares ISA. So for example, if you have a short-term goal such as a house renovation project or saving up for a car purchase, which you'll need the money under 5 years, then a Cash ISA may suit you well. In this case, if you put money in the stock market, let's say an S&P 500 tracking fund, then decide to take the money out after 3 or so years, as that's when you want to achieve your goal, that's when you want to buy a new car, that's when you want to renovate your house. In this case, you face the risk that the market has a bad few years. You face the risk that in those 3 years, the market has a downturn and you end up losing money. So in this case, you may be better suited to a Cash ISA to reduce the risk. So overall, Cash ISAs are a great option and usually are suited to those with short-term goals, those with short time frames of needing the money, and those with low risk appetites. Firstly, thank you so much for watching the video to this point. And overall, based on your risk appetite and when you need to withdraw the money, your time frame, you should now have a good idea of whether a Cash ISA or a stocks and shares ISA best suits you. However, some of you may still be slightly confused, as you may think I'm actually in the middle, as I have a short-term goal suited to a Cash ISA and a long-term goal suited to a stocks and shares ISA. This is perfectly normal, and the decision of a Cash ISA versus a stocks and shares ISA is not a zero-sum game either. You can have both. In a single tax year, you can open both a Cash ISA and a stocks and shares ISA, and it's just a case of allocating the right proportion of funds to each of those accounts. And the proportion you should allocate to each of those accounts depends on the priority of the goals associated with each of those accounts. So the priority of the goal for the Cash ISA and the priority of the goal for the stocks and shares ISA. And based on that, you should be able to gauge how much you should allocate to each of those accounts. If you'd like to find out my recommended stocks and shares ISA platform for this ISA year, I have a video around here. And I also have a video series around here of my recommended Cash ISAs which I've reviewed. So check that out also if it's of interest. But for this video, thanks for watching.